live stream tonight, I decided that I wanted to talk about the power of authenticity. I think this is something that is really undervalued in our society, and I think that in the current climate of fear, things have become really oppressive. The pressure from the herd to conform is extremely powerful, and we have a lot of data from research, clinical research over the decades that really indicates that conforming to social pressures is actually a much more sophisticated issue than a lot of people would imagine. Um, so first, I want to explain that the Kabbalion has been put on hold because we had to take our computer in. So as soon as we get that back, we'll be back on track with that. Um, yeah, and then tomorrow I have a special surprise for you guys. It's going to be one of the most powerful live streams I've done, and I'm actually going to share stuff that I'm actually even hesitant to talk about on YouTube. Um, but I'm going to do it anyways, and it'll be totally worth it. So keep an eye out for that. I'm not going to reveal the subject yet, though. So authenticity. Um, I'm of the opinion that the politesse that we use as social lubrication is actually responsible for cloaking a lot of the evils in our society, and it's very, very difficult to convince people that behaviors that they have always regarded as admirable and good and even necessary are actually unhealthy and toxic. And I think that our social politesse is definitely one of those things. We have become such a corporatized, even digitized, but definitely corporatized, commercialized society to our very essence of our being. I've always been sort of disturbed by the extent to which dealing with your average, like, white liberal American, for example, is, even when they're not in the office, it's like you're dealing with an office worker. That's what you're interfacing with. And this oppression of our authentic self and this habit of cocooning up in public in order to protect yourself from the judgments, particularly the judgments. I think that's really the main thing of other people, and it has its roots in so many different layers of our being that are not healthy. But mostly, I think it's a protective mechanism to create this kind of persona, and so we become conditioned to accepting people at face value, right? And so this actually facilitates the proliferation of, serial killings and scamming and all of these sort of nefarious behaviors that are predicated for their existence upon deception by sociopaths and psychopaths. But we have become so accustomed, so acculturated to accepting this sort of shallow, surface level interaction with people as the norm, that it has become authenticity within our culture. And we accept people's veneer without enough critical thinking, and without enough analysis. And when we do, we generally tend to hide those thoughts. And my proposition is that it would be much, much healthier for us and for everyone else if we all stopped being polite. Being polite serves a purpose. When someone is mentally disabled and you're not going to call them stupid, this is functional politesse, okay? But the kind of politesse that people generally engage in is, it's more like hiding behind a mask. And what serves people is to have interactions that are actually meaningful, that have depth, that have substance, that have the potential to transform either or both parties. Um, and so it's something that I think we really need to take seriously. Also, I think one of the things that inhibits people is lack of self-esteem, lack of self-confidence, and particularly when it comes to politically charged subjects like COVID, for example. That's a huge one. This it's nearly impossible to have a conversation with anyone that is on the other side of whatever side of the aisle you're on. Um, it's paralyzing for progress in general to have these kind of walls up. Um, it's debilitating, and I think that one of the most powerful things I can offer in terms of something you can use to bolster your own confidence is that most of these people around you that are establishing or that appear to be establishing setting the trends. Their beliefs and behavior are indicative of what we perceive to be the cultural norm, the mainstream. There was an experiment done. I don't remember when, but it's a very famous experiment. And there was a group of people who were all in on this experiment except for one person. And they were all shown lines, and only one of the lines was much smaller than the other lines. And 88% of people would lie and say that the lines were all the same size if it allowed them to conform to what they perceived to be the consensus, right? This is the power of the pressure to conform with the herd. Oh man, I just realized I'm not using my microphone, so the audio is probably not great. How's that? Did the microphone? Is there a microphone now? Can you guys still hear the audio? Somebody let me know if you have audio. Dang. Give me just a second to check here. That should be that should be much better. Okay. So now we have a better mic. Orientation is locked. For real now. I think we're good. All right. Yeah, I've gotten out of the custom of dealing with this gear because I had switched to the other gear, and now that it's all in the shop. Um, anyways, so the experiment with the lines and people conforming to whatever they expect or whatever they perceive the herd to believe, right? The thing that you have to remember is that there's a very good chance that whatever the herd is saying it thinks, it doesn't actually think, right? Because it's monkey see, monkey do. Primates are imitative creatures, right? They just do whatever the other monkeys are doing. And so, if you want to have a more authentic society, it really truly begins with you. Because if you can convince even a small group of people to take a step into the light of authenticity, that light is going to be, it's going to act like a contagion. It's going to spread like COVID, right? Because as soon as someone perceives that everyone else is thinking something, they're going to adopt that stance 90% of the time. And so, from where we are at the moment with a very artificial, disconnected society, things are being made worse, much worse, because of COVID. People are having to maintain physical distance. They're wearing masks. They're not having social functions, right? But if you think about the fact that the change that is required to catalyze, a massive domino effect of masks figuratively and literally popping off of people's faces every single time one person takes their mask off, we're that much closer to
liberating the entire herd. And I really think this is really one of the most undervalued of the problems in our society. Um, and it's a very difficult one because once you take any step towards being an iconoclast, right? I mean, some of you guys have watched what's happened to me. Iconoclasts are almost always ignored and ridiculed during their lifetime and then celebrated once they're dead. They're basically, when we say martyr, what we really mean is iconoclast. Um, and so it does take some degree of bravery. It takes some courage. It takes some I don't want to say balls, because if you kick a man in the balls, he doubles over. You kick a woman in the vagina, and it's no problem really. So, you know what I mean? It's not saying that balls make you tough just seems inappropriate. Not that men aren't tough, but yeah, the job of the iconoclast, creating an iconoclasm, right? Cataclysm and iconoclast combined, and iconoclasm is it's a thankless task in a lot of ways, because you're going to run into some friction, but I think ultimately it's worth it. Um, and I think that a lot of the ridiculous social movements that we have going on right now, where we're sort of micromanaging people's behavior and trying to impose certain terminologies and perceptions on people that are not really fair. But it's we're I'm trying to avoid naming these things specifically and still talking about it. Uh, but we're focusing on these tiny little wedge issues because I think it allows people to compensate for the fact that they're still allowing corporate monsters to send their children to die for profit. So they can find these sort of um, almost inconsequential, movements to become a part of, and it allows them to compensate for the fact that they're really causing no meaningful change at all. And this goes right along with um, the idea of people having masks, right? Because a lot of these people don't actually believe what they're saying. Do you really think that all these people that get so offended over these tiny little transgressions and all of these ridiculous things all the time, they're really offended by them? No, they're not. They're virtue signaling. They're looking for approval from the rest of the herd. In a lot of cases, they don't even know what they're talking about. I I saw a video of a kid that was definitely old enough that he was capable of understanding, and he was a young preacher, and he was just yelling and screaming the word of the Bible and all this stuff. And then someone asked him to explain what he was actually talking about, and he couldn't do it. And if you watch videos of a lot of like hardcore liberal activist types, and the same goes for like extremist right wing people, when they're actually asked to explain, to justify, their position, most of them can't do it because what they're really doing is just applying a mask in search of approval from what they perceive to be the consensus of the herd. And so what this does is it diverts energy from major issues like going to war with Russia and directs that energy, splinters it first, and then directs it at all these inconsequential things that people get offended about that are really none of their fucking business. So it is really a tremendous obligation for us to lead by example, because in this day and age of canceling, you can just 86 anybody that says anything that you don't like, right? Our ability to use selective perception to engineer a false reality for ourselves through social media, especially now in this COVID era, it's not healthy, and it's not good for anyone. It's allowing everyone to customize their tunnel vision, right? And it's it's sort of the antithesis to progress, really. Because what we need are people that have a holistic perception of what's happening in the world, what matters in the world, what truths are available to us, revelations, you know, are there for us. How can we expand the parameters of our experience and make them greater, right? What we have the ability to do now is to trim our already absurdly narrow vantage point of perception to a tiny, tiny, tiny little like pinhole in a piece of cardboard, like the way you would view the sun. And so to have the courage to step into our authenticity and live in the light of truth and not have any iota, not the most like vague sense of concern for what anyone else thinks, for what anyone else thinks of what you're saying, what you're doing, what you look like. Um, we have to completely eradicate that from our beings, from our cultures. It's extremely important that we stop being polite. Just don't do it. This is not. I'm not advocating being rude to people exactly. Um, but you should never mitigate, especially if you feel like it's something that really has uh, power. Anything with any kind of substance, you should not mitigate your message. You shouldn't not mitigate, but water it down. The word is escaping me. Dilute it. You know, speak with concision and act with concision. Don't don't dilute any of it. Pay attention to the phonetics of words. This language was created by the mind, and most of it was done subconsciously. So, magician, musician, dilute, delude, right? You don't just don't do it. It's even difficult for me. Like when I make videos on this channel, I do live streams, and we're struggling because of COVID. They just created more restrictions that killed another one of our businesses completely dead. Um, So, there's some pressure for me to think, okay, well, maybe I should clean up, get one of these ridiculous haircuts that makes me look like a herd conformist, and uh, you know, be careful, about all the profanity all the time, and don't say things that are going to piss off liberals because it's a psychedelic channel and there's going to be like hippie types that are super liberal. But you know what? Fuck that. I would rather starve to death telling the truth. You know what I mean? Than uh, live for a lie. Even a little one. I've just gotten to the point, at 42 years old, that I really don't have any tolerance for bullshit. Not from people, not from myself, not from a society, none of it. You know, it's not a matter of effort either. I am just being myself and doing what I do naturally, what I've always done. Everyone has this essential self, and if it's unencumbered and unburdened, then it knows what it wants to do, how it wants to act, how it needs to act. Um, and we just have to not be afraid, you know, because these really irrational propaganda and fear-driven behaviors that are so prolific, ubiquitous in our society, um, they are what is killing us, and one of the major things that we have to address is bias, all of our different types of biases. And I know I talk about this all the time, but one thing I haven't done is explain how it is that these biases become so deeply entwined with our survival instincts. And so I'll use the example of a heuristic bias, right? It is, if we didn't have heuristic bias, what's going on, Earthworth? If we didn't have heuristic bias, uh, we would not um, be able to like ride a bicycle really quickly. right? The reason you're able to haul ass on a motorcycle, whatever, a car, without, some people don't have this and they freak out all the time. My mom used to do it. People that have been traumatized often don't have healthy heuristic bias. But heuristic bias tells us that I've ridden a bike 10,000 times at 30 miles an hour and I've never died. And so even though it's total bullshit that because it hasn't happened before, it's not going to happen today. No truth to that at all. One day you could go riding your bike, get hit by a truck, die. People, it happens on this road out here a couple times a year, especially motorcycles. Um, I barely missed one a little while back. The guy burst into flames, head split open. He thought he was going home that day. Uh, Heuristic bias did not help him, right? But that's how these biases, it's an example of how these biases can actually serve us and protect us. Because, if you suddenly panicked at 30 miles an hour going down a hill on a bicycle, you would crash, right? If a thought entered your head and you didn't have that bias there to protect you, you would have a problem. And so, in that sense, heuristic bias is good. But if you go outside one day and get hit by lightning, um, and you develop a phobia that every time you're going to go outside, you get hit by lightning. I mean, it happened to me twice in 1 week. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it did. Well, I don't think there were direct hits, but something got hit close enough to me that it zapped me twice in 1 week. Um, and usually after trauma, we will have those and we'll get over it after a while. But the point is basically that I just wanted to kind of give an example of how these biases function and how they become integral, in the same way that social polites has integrated itself as a survival mechanism, but it doesn't necessarily serve us at all. In fact, I think that really this tendency for people to get on board with these um, movements that are inconsequential, right? And to get really, really deeply invested in them, while they still allow all these horrors to go on all around them in their society. This is a direct result of that not taking responsibility for our authenticity, really, and it's all fear-driven. We have to speak our deepest truths. We have to be aligned with our deepest truths. We have to act in accordance with our deepest truths. I don't think that anyone should ever have to sit through 30 minutes of small talk. It could have its time and place, but for the most part, all interactions between human beings should be meaningful. And, many, many years ago, I noticed that not only are most human interactions not very meaningful, um, it actually makes people uncomfortable oftentimes if you are too sincere, if you're too personal, um, because we have been conditioned to have these buffers, and we believe it's for our own good, and it's how society is able to operate. But the reality is that these are the mechanisms that have allowed society to degrade. You could think of it as like, I often speak about how evil is just like a byproduct of chaos, which is empty space. So these buffer zones in our humanity have created these like chasms, these voids where our humanity and the things that should matter in our interactions are able to just fall and disappear into these spaces between us. And this moment in history is probably the most important time for us to come to terms with the fact that we have to abandon social polites, that we have to stop being polite, that we have to start figuring out what we really think and what really matters, and constraining all of our inner forces, all of our inner being to act in accordance with those things at all times, not just most of the time, not when it's appropriate, not when we feel comfortable, but at all times, under every circumstance, without excuse, without fear, and with good intentions and without ego. It's not really that difficult. Psychedelics help, meditation helps, good diet helps. All of these things help. Keep your money right, right? Do everything you can to build up your confidence and your self-esteem, and increase your clarity, and hemisync, get the different hemispheres of your brain communicating, so that you can really know your song well before you start singing, but then sing. And do me a favor too, if you're watching this, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. I forgot to put the Zelle and PayPal address in the chat. So if you're really determined to support us, you can find it in another video description. We don't have our computer, and I don't have all this stuff saved to my phone. So, I mean, that's really the bulk of it, you guys. It's something that has bothered me my entire life. It's one of the main influences that has like driven me to remain separated from society and always. I mean, the people that I interact with have always been outside of it as well, for the most part. And there's good reason for that. I didn't really see a tremendous amount of value of going and sitting around with people, pretending like we're something that we're not, acting like we're happier than we really are. There's a social engagement. I'm not going to name any names that I end up in here quite a bit, and I can't believe it. I'm baffled. Why people would get together and pretend like their relationship is something other than it is with their significant other. Um, Children pretend they put on a face for their parents to make their parents think they did a better job than they really did, which doesn't actually serve the parents. You think it does. You think you're being nice to your parents. You think that you're, being respectful, but what you're actually doing is being an enabler, and you are allowing them to go to the grave, eventually with delusions and illusions about themselves that do not serve them. You might as well tell your parents that you're an alcoholic, because then you're going to get help, more likely. And they're going to realize that they did emotional damage. And at the end of the day, it's better for everyone. So all of these social masks and social veneers really don't serve any purpose. I know some people specifically that I was thinking of that, raging alcoholics, loveless relationship, all of this stuff is totally rooted in their parents' relationship. When they're around their parents, they just cover it all up, and then their parents think, oh well, we raised one kid that was sane and has their shit together. It's a total lie, and all the rest of the kids are insane and dysfunctional, and they can see it. But there's one that manages to pretend, and so it allows them to have this delusion. Don't do that to your parents. Take your mask off. I'm using extreme examples on purpose. um, but you can see how just one person's uh, illusory relationship, false interaction, shallow interaction with another individual can set off a cascade of negative consequences. Um, we believe that these things are positive and that they serve good purposes. But if you just analyze and think a little bit more deeply about this stuff, you you realize that it actually doesn't serve anyone, and that the true service is to be sincere and open, and to do it without fear and good intentions. And this would transform our society and get rid of a lot of the worst elements of it. I mean, this is a real problem for a lot of people, and it's something that, as a plant medicine facilitator, I've really had to try to understand, because I never had it. I never wanted to be something because my parents expected something of me. I never had any expectations of myself. I didn't understand this. And so one time there was a girl that kind of broke down a little bit and asked me to come and talk with her separately away from the group. And she said, I'm tired of keeping up image. And I didn't understand. Like, I literally didn't understand at first. I thought she was talking about she didn't want to, she felt pressure to put on makeup all the time, and which is basically the same thing, I guess. But I had to kind of learn to understand, like, how difficult this is for so many people to have an authentic relationship with their parents, because they don't want to hurt their parents. No, I don't see any reason to go through AA. I don't drink, so I'm not really inclined to Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps. Um, and in fact, the plant medicine that I was talking about is about 85% more effective. So, I think for the most part here in South America, we'll stick with our ayahuasca, and sitting around in buildings pretending to be something we're not, we'll leave that to to Alcoholics Anonymous. I did go to one of those meetings. That's why you can probably tell I have kind of a negative association. And, I mean, all these people sitting around saying that if you do anything addictive, you're going to relapse, and they're all smoking cigarettes, pounding down caffeine, um, saying if you work it, it works, and it's their seventh time out of prison. And now here I am giving people ayahuasca twice, and they never have a problem again 5 years later. I mean, it's time to move on beyond all we. That's one of those things we've convinced ourselves that it's effective, but if you actually just go into one of those rooms and look around the room, there's no reality to it. Um, we have much more effective means of dealing with this stuff, and I think it's time for everyone to step into the future. Oh yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I guess maybe I'm not familiar with what you mean by the 12 steps. Um, but yeah, not a big fan of AA and NA. And when I suggested to them that they could try ayahuasca and maybe it would work a little better and they wouldn't be on their eighth trip through NA and parole and prison, I was driven out of the room because people couldn't handle the idea that you could take something that alters your consciousness to deal with an addiction. Yeah, that's another thing. You're not powerless, and God is, in my opinion, totally neutral. And so, it is you. This is another, giving our power away is similar to not living in our authenticity. And saying, if it wasn't for Jesus, I couldn't have done this. If you consider that Jesus isn't real, you did it. Don't give your power away to some imaginary entity. You did that. Um, there was never any. It was only your mind. That's the only aid that you ever had. Um, it was your own determination, your own conviction. Uh, that's it. It's just you. There is no God where I am. It's just you, and that connection with your authentic self is the most valuable treasure that you are ever going to unearth. Um, oh no, are you bringing Bible stuff in here? I mean, if you really want to do that, we can talk about how that God in the Bible tells us that women should lay down and not speak and can never be in charge of anything, and tells us the proper way to beat a slave. Uh, that if we have a child that's rebellious, we should take him to the gates of the city and stone him to death because it would be better than for him to be rebellious. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. That is just it's garbage. The Bible needs to be lit on fire. Wait till you guys see my Born Against Christians shirts. Whoever that is with the Bible quotes in the chat, I'll send you one. You'll love it. It's the best design ever. Um, I'll start wearing them on my live streams to try to discourage that kind of interaction. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't judge you, but then he sends you to hell for all of eternity. I mean, we're getting way off subject. Like, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. Like, how can you believe that a loving God would create you, not judge you, and then send you to hell because you chose not to believe in one of literally a million options? Like, it's literally the dumbest thing in the history of humanity. Like, literally the dumbest thing ever. Um, and that's not your authentic self. Um, It's not your authentic self that is religious. That is your conditioning. That's your cultural programming. That's 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 not. It's not real. The Bible is just a book that was written by dozens of people and then rewritten. It's there's there's no validity to it at all. Jesus Christ did not ever live. He is a mythical composite character that was based on earlier myths and even his what do you call it, his ministry was based on the campaign, military campaign of Titus. It goes in the same order, it stops at the same places. The Romans created it in order to defuse this warrior Messiah thing that they were worried about with the Palestinians. It's not real. It's not real. Sorry, it's not real. And uh, I don't want to get into this religious debate. I don't know where this is even coming from. I mean, this is the last thing we want on this channel. If honestly, if I had my laptop, I would ban you. Um, I don't have my laptop. I don't know how to do it on here. Otherwise, I would have a long time ago. As soon as I saw the word Bible, it would have been gone. Um, because that's my authentic self. I have no tolerance for that. Christianity is the most evil influence in the history of this planet. And I'm not about to warm up to it in the middle of this live stream where I'm trying to convince people to get in touch with their, true self for the Bible stuff, man. We don't need to hear about that. It's not helpful to anyone. That book needs to be just wiped off the face of the earth. It's a tragedy that it ever existed. Um, okay, well, either way, I mean, it was engineered to create homogeneous, easy to manage, mindless, subservient slave population, and we're trying to create the opposite. I mean, if anything, I'm Luciferian. The idea of living for considering your individuality sacred, and the only reason I'm not Luciferian is that I wouldn't worship anything. I don't worship anything. It doesn't make sense to worship things. We're all fragments of the consciousness that you talk about as God the Father. It just the way I think about it is it exploded, and now we are like little uh, balls of it that are fragments of it, individual atoms of it, um, that are going through a process of self-realization, just like the universe at large. And I don't think there's any reason to think about that in religious terms. We can think about it in even purely in terms of quantum physics, and it will survive that. Consciousness as the fifth field, the quintessence, in the same way that 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 spirit is often referred to as the fifth element. It's the fifth field, right? We have the four major fields of physics, and it is the property of the interaction of the other four. So the fifth element, the philosopher's stone, the quintessence. Okay, well, if Jesus has hijacked the live stream, I guess I can go with it. I don't. By the way, the live stream that I'm doing tomorrow is going to be about Lucifer, because when I did a poll, that's what people wanted me to talk about. I was actually kind of surprised that so many people um, voted for that, and that's another thing that doesn't exist. It's literally not in the Bible, the original Bible in any language. There's no such thing as Lucifer. Uh, Literally nothing in there. It's Ben Hillel or something. It's Hebrew. It's not light bearer even. It's the son of the dawn. Um, well, see, that I can say that I've experienced to some extent, and it might be true. Um, Yeah, and it's not even it wasn't even in the Bible. It's got nothing to do with what people think it does. Saint Lucifer was I think it was the guy that wrote Ezekiel. He was a rival politician, and so he was like his name was used as the demon in this book. That's that's all it is. And it really wasn't even a demon. I mean, it doesn't even really say anything. How hast thou fallen from heaven, son of the morning? It's funny, sometimes when Christians try to get into shit with me, I'll just start talking about the Bible in Hebrew and Latin, and then they inevitably don't know a fraction as much about it as I do, and that ends the conversation really quickly, because there's this weird idea that if you just read the Bible, that somehow you're going to see the blinding truth of it. And what I see is rape, incest, murder, lies, bigotry, uh, and a lot of really, really bad advice. And then the one thing that I will say, though, about Christianity is that the only bit of spiritual knowledge that is of any utility to anyone um, was best expressed by the character of Jesus of Nazareth in the New Testament when he said, "Love your neighbor as you will love yourself." Yes, the God of the Old Testament was, if it was a real thing, it was definitely the demiurge. I'll totally agree with that. Um, but love your neighbor as you would love yourself. Like, if people, this is another thing about our masks, right? And I didn't really even talk much when I was still on that subject about um, that type of mask, which is a different thing than just not fully expressing, but actually totally concealing um, with a false personality, right? Like, and what you were saying about fake Christians, um, everyone will say that they think that you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. But how many people actually do it? Most people don't even love their kids as they love themselves, because there's no fucking way that most of the military kids, unless their parents already were in the military, they wouldn't go fight the war that they're sending their kids to go fight. They would run like hell. Most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them would. They'll sacrifice their children to save themselves. That's really what war is, to a large extent. It's like using your children as a human shield. People don't want to think about it like that. And when people like me speak honestly about this stuff, that's why they get so enraged. It is a personal attack to some extent. But how can you realize this stuff and not feel compelled to actually say something? I don't understand. And the only way that I understand it is that it kind of lacks utility, because most people are just going to shut you out. But it's true. And we need to admit it. And somebody needs to say something. Stop using your kids as human shields. You're not in any danger unless there are people here trying to kill you, right? And the only reason that your kids were sent to Iraq to die and to have their legs and limbs blown off, and Afghanistan, all this bullshit, was to get control of resources that we don't even actually need, because we could use technology to transcend our need for those resources, right? So this is what I'm saying about authenticity. It's not just about living a more fulfilling life. It actually will save lives, you know, because if we're not taking up these peripheral causes and actually dealing with the deepest, darkest shit in our society, things like war might actually stop, right? But as long as you're crying because somebody used the wrong pronoun, and that's what the media is full of. Right now, there is more shit on social media about gender pronouns than there is about the fact that World War III is brewing all over the planet. And if you think that's a coincidence, you need a psychiatrist, seriously, or some LSD or something. Because, come on, you know, what is the military going to do about this? When they're trying to draft Gen Z, and nobody identifies, like, is the military going to recognize gender pronouns? How is this going to work? Is it, the product of Chinese propaganda, like the right wing says, to make sure that the United States has no base of soldiers because they all don't even know what gender they are and so can't be sent to fight? I mean, Yeah, the NWO is bringing the one world government, and I think that the one world government originally would have been a good thing, but the way that they're implementing it now is not a good thing. Actually, the only government that I think is a good government, and this is something, Ray, that you can probably agree with, is the divine providence. And the thing is that this is not something that comes from ascribing to a religion or believing in a book. It is something that comes from process. It's something that, nothing worth teaching can be taught. It can be encouraged, but it can't really be taught in a substantive way. Um, it has to be learned through experience, and that includes spirituality, right? And Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Illuminati that everyone blames the NWO on, uh, that's what he was saying. So I think if he had succeeded, we would have a much different world. And it's just classic Orwellian Babylon propaganda to take the one guy in his organization that might have actually stopped them and make everyone think it was the enemy. That shit is hilarious. I mean, they're good at what they do. But that's another one of my unpopular opinions. The Illuminati was not bad. They were trying to do something good, and that's why they've been demonized. Because most people won't even listen anymore, either because they don't want to hear about it at all, because they think conspiracy theories are insane, or um, they think it's evil to the extent that they're not even going to listen to you if you try to tell them otherwise. And the thing is, if you directed their attention to what they were actually saying, what Adam Weishaupt had actually written in his private writings, everyone would like, that's it. That's what we, you know what I mean? That's why they've demonized it. Um, Man, we have gone way off subject. I was going to try to make this like a normal live stream for once and try to just see if I could almost like if I could communicate with like normal people to, to some extent, but we just couldn't handle it. We all just went off the deep end. Um, I feel like I did miss something about this whole authenticity trip, though. I mean, it really is one of the central uh, elements to rehabilitating our culture. It really is. Just and I'm not saying that in certain sectors it's not increasing. People that one of the problems with psychedelic integration is that people have these ayahuasca experiences, and I can't imagine that. I've met a lot of people. I've had some people in my ceremonies that are first timers, and they have had no. Yeah, I just wasted $300 trying to get a pro level one. I can't even use it. The computer's in the shop. Uh, Um, yeah, peeling away layers of trauma is it, and that's why one of the reasons ayahuasca is so effective. But the problem is that people, you're coming from a completely normal office worker background or whatever. You know what I mean? Your parents were average middle class people. You've always been atheist, normal, middle class liberal or whatever, and you drink ayahuasca and suddenly you're talking to interdimensional beings and like the experience is so incredibly bizarre and impossible that it's a lot for a lot of people to just pick themselves up after the ceremony and go back to their normal life, which is what a lot of people have to do afterwards. And it's just such a jarring juxtaposition of to suddenly have really found your authentic self, to realize that the universe is alive and humming with a universal consciousness, and that, you are that Bill Hicks quote. I can't recall off the top of my head. The universe is all vibrations. The Bill Hicks bit. I'm sure you know it. Um, it's really a difficult thing for people, and I think what really kills a lot of people, literally almost sometimes, and they feel so much worse after they have these experiences. Um, is that the drive to act in accordance with your authentic self once it has been discovered is so powerful and so unescapable that once you encounter that resistance from culture again, you are it's like putting your being in a blender or something. It's horrible, and it's not um, it's not something that should happen to people. This is This is one of the reasons. Well, like for example, after ayahuasca, a lot of traditions they say you should not have any contact with other people, particularly sex, any kind of deep um, exchange of energy like that, because you're like a newborn baby, and it's it's literally true that your neuroplasticity has been restored to that of a toddler. So all of these influences are tremendously impactful, and yeah, that's another impediment, I think, to people. Sure, are realizing that they need to step into their authenticity and live in accordance with their highest values, and not allow society to censor them, not allow herd conformity pressures to compel them to pretend to believe something they don't. And remember, 90% of people will do this. Okay. And this is why it's so important to have courage and to have faith, and to have confidence in whatever position you're taking. Hopefully you've done your due diligence and you're objective and all of this stuff. We're making a lot of assumptions here, but if you found your real authentic self, chances are pretty good that it's solid. You should have the courage to stand in it, because most of the herd probably doesn't even believe what they act like they believe. They're only saying the things they're saying, doing the things they're doing, because they think it's what everyone else expects of them. Remember this experiment that I'm always referencing, where most of the people are in on the experiment, and there's one line that's half the size of the other ones. And if they all lie 90% of the time, the guy that's not in on the experiment will also lie. This is the world you're living in. And you have to realize the extent of it. You have to realize how powerful the propaganda has been, how powerful the indoctrination of religions, and even the scientific ontological disposition, I guess. And I'm not saying science is bad at all, but I am saying that the assumptions that a lot of people that are inclined to, science as their reality defining um, goggles or whatever, you know what I'm trying to say. Uh, it's created blind spots in really important places. And in that way, it's very much like a religion. So I think that the more people actually have the courage to do this, obviously we understand the psychology, right? If you know that if a movement starts forming, people that are surrounded by those people are going to conform to and the irony here is that in this case, the iconoclasm, right? Shaking people. You know what iconoclast is? Let me define it in case any of you don't know. An iconoclast is an person or institution that challenges um, long held, deeply cherished, deeply rooted beliefs. And incredibly, iconoclast has become like an insult, particularly among certain types of professionals like doctors and scientists. But in my opinion, society only moves by the light of genius. And there are few iconoclasts that aren't geniuses. This is what compels them to their iconoclasm, right? Um, they're seeing what no one else sees. So, iconoclasm, iconoclast, cataclysm, and it starts with you and you and you. It really does. I need to get better at it. I'll take responsibility for that, because I've become so jaded and so cynical in a way. Not cynical myself, but like cynical about the cynicism of other people or something. I don't know how to say it. Um, but I often lack the patience that and any inclination even to try to be polite or gentle. You know, I'm just brutally just as short as I can possibly manage, brief and brutal. You know, I just tell the truth, and that's no sugar with this medicine at all. And sometimes I regret it for sure. And I realize that what I need to strive for myself is maximum efficiency, or efficacy, excuse me, efficacy. And that kind of bluntness causes probably more head trauma than it does, uh, you know, head change, I guess. I don't know, that's a pothead term. But it does the job. So I hope you guys feel empowered by this message. I'm sorry I was so hard on the Christian guy, and I do appreciate your position. You're one of the better ones. Um, but it's difficult for me to have any kind of tolerance for any religious anything, considering uh, a spider catch a monkey. I have to go way into the Amazon for that. But there is the largest. I think there's a spider in the Middle East that's bigger. But there is a spider in the jungle that is said to eat monkeys. Not large monkeys, but definitely monkeys. I saw a praying mantis eat a mouse a while back, which you wouldn't think that would. It had it by the head and it was blood. Like, how does a praying mantis eat a mouse? I mean, that's just. Um, but if you understand that I'm in South America, and for example, one night I was walking at like 2 a.m. and I didn't know praying mantises were attracted to flashlights, and I'm walking along and the praying mantis starts like attacking me, but it's got its wings fully, extended, and uh, it's really just persistent, and I had no clue what it was. So it was terrifying until I figured out I didn't even know it was attacking me because of the phone for like 2 minutes or something, like running around like, what is this monster attacking me in the middle of the night in the jungle? And it was just, I mean, I shouldn't say just a praying mantis because that thing would definitely take some skin off for sure. They eat mice. I mean, praying mantises in South America sometimes eat mice. Um, so don't be polite anymore. You know, I'm not advocating meanness, but your politesse is killing people. Uh, well, I'm actually in the Andes right now. Real quick, I'll tell you another weird ass thing about South America. I live in the Andes in the mountains, and one day I had been drinking San Pedro all night, and I had to go to town in the morning. And so I'm walking along up the desert, like it's like semi-arid desert. It's not desert, but it's in between. And there's a big purple crab, like snapping. It was really aggressive in my way. And I'm like, are you serious? And so I thought it was a fluke. But then today, this lady invited us to her property, and she's like, wait till you see all the crabs in the woods. Like, what? You mean I just thought it must have fallen in the irrigation ditch or something and crawled out. I don't know how, but I guess there are land dwelling crabs, purple ones here in the Andes. So watch out for that. I'll post that in my shorts somewhere. Do me a favor too, you guys. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. Uh, I normally have links in my description. If somebody wants to go and copy and paste from another video and put it in the chat, my crypto address and everything. Man, because COVID really is killing us. It really is. They snuffed another one of our businesses with the latest regulations, so we're just like they won't let anyone in or out of the town. Um, so there's no tourists. Like we're just they've. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be on a friend's podcast on Friday. I'll put a link in the community chat. He made a really great video today. I would suggest to anyone to go and check it out. It's just called like, oh, they lied. Shamans. You can actually find a link to his channel in my suggested channels. Definitely worth it. He has neuroscientists and people that folks like us. Um, oh yeah, there's some Bruja stories for sure. Uh, anyways, he made this. I think you know the answer to that, Rez. But I'll talk about it if you want me to. But let me finish with this. He posted this "So They Lied to Us" video, and it is Fauci, whatever his name is, and then Biden and all of these U.S. officials saying stuff about COVID and the vaccine in the first minute, and the second minute is what they're saying now, and it's the complete opposite. Like it's absolute proof. It's not stuff taken out of context, and it's not necessarily even like an anti-vaxxer video. It's just like totally solid proof that they're full of shit for some reason. I'm not making any judgments about what that reason is, but it's proof. Um, so yeah, I mean it's a daunting task, you guys. Herd conformity pressure is no joke. I am as outside of it as I could get. I've lived my entire life sequestered away from society, and I still am affected by it to some extent. My Facebook page was deleted last year. My channel's been demonetized. You know, um, people have turned on me, close friends, family. Uh, it has become really polarizing to tell the truth. And one of the reasons that it's so polarizing to tell the truth is that whether you believe it or not, there's propaganda on both sides of the political aisle. And it's specifically designed to make it so that the two sides can never really agree. Half of what the left thinks is wrong and half of what the right thinks is wrong. That way they'll never get anywhere. And because these beliefs, these doctrinal beliefs, are so integrated with their survival mechanism, if you challenge any of it, the fight or flight response is triggered. And so if you are speaking the truth, you are going to alienate half of the people on each side right off the bat. You understand what I'm saying? Because this is important. Anyone that's actually telling the truth, assuming that I'm correct about this 50-50 split of truth and lies on both sides of the aisle, and I'm talking about in the alternative narratives as well, right? Because if you have people thinking outside of the box, where are you going to need to put all your propaganda? So all of you people that think you have escaped the matrix lies by believing or alternative narratives, most of what you're thinking is real is probably propaganda too. So you once you're speaking the truth with all of these lies in all of the narratives, mainstream and alternative, you're going to be alienating a lot of people. And you have to do it anyways. You have an obligation to yourself, and you have an obligation to the rest of society to do it anyways. We're already in deep shit, but we're going to be in deeper shit if we don't start taking drastic action. And what we have to realize is that as a society, if things have gone this wrong, it means that a lot of our sacred cows and a lot of our institutionalized beliefs are obviously wrong, which means things that we think are good are actually bad. And it's not just everyone else that thinks that good things are bad and bad things are good. It's almost everyone. Well, there aren't really sources for real, truthful information, in my opinion. I mean, that's why generally what I do, I try to do is just challenge everything that can easily be challenged. But I'm not trying to tell anyone what's actually real or true, or because I don't think we can do that really. If you're talking about politically, if you're talking about governments, they have such sophisticated propaganda machines. They have such deep, thick smoke screens. They have so much money and so much intelligence gathering apparatuses, so many tentacles in so many places. For us to try to ascertain what's actually going on. That's my biggest problem with conspiracy theorists. Like, these people always think they know stuff that they couldn't possibly know. They have Galen Kruger, and Neil Young, I think, was always helpless. He's just a hippie. I hate "A Man Needs a Maid" too. I think that's the worst song ever in the history of well, no, but in Neil Young's catalog, and a lot of people really love it. I just think it's the whiniest. It is like upper middle class white person shit taken to a level that is offensive to, the 16th African in me. Is just like, man, I can't handle it. But I do really love like "Down by the River" and that one with the rainbows and stuff. No, it has not aged well. I mean, nothing ages well but wine, I think, for the most part. Wine and cheese, man. French people don't age well. I know some French people, they smoke too much. And okay, so, I can't just keep. The only reason I kept jumping back on the authenticity thing is that new people were popping on, and I thought, shit, the thumbnail, I don't want to trick them. I need to stay on. I don't want to have them click on something and then they come in here and I'm like, Satan or whatever, propaganda. But it's true, man. Our society is a lie built on a lie, built on a lie, built on a lie, built on a lie, built on a lie. And here's the thing: if you build a structure and then you have a faulty spot in that structure, the rest of the structure is informed to some extent by this one faulty. It's the same kind of thing as you're only as strong as your weakest link, but it's bigger than that because uh, our society is like it builds more like bacteria replicate or viruses replicate, right? It's like a process of replication. So it's not just a weak link. The other structures have been integrated into this faulty thing, and it's been integrated into the structures. So um, I see we have 11 viewers and 11 thumbs. So let's make that 21 thumbs and make a wish. That was my wish. I made a wish that all of you will hit like right now, um, and support us on PayPal and Zelle. COVID has been evil to us. Yeah, and also, you guys, if you have suggestions for people that you would like me to have conversations with on the channel, please put them in the comments. You can't. I think replay is on for this chat. That's a pain in the ass. So put them in the comments when you can, I guess. Email them to me, something. I'm trying to get better about that. And not, this channel shouldn't just be me talking all the time. I need to have some fresh blood come in and spice things up a little bit. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think I've fallen into one of the traps of division because what happens when you know that people aren't going to listen to you, and you know that they're dragging other people down a path to hell and destroying. I appreciate it, Mr. Falco. They're dragging other people with them. You're compelled to. Really, MIT? Yeah, no. Here's the thing, you guys. Here's the thing. Um, there are treatments for COVID that are cheap and easy and they work. First, we had Rogan talking about it. Um, I used to think that liberals were smart people. I really did. My opinion has changed because when you try to tell them this stuff, they're not trying to hear it. But ivermectin actually was developed in part to treat viruses. It's not horse dewormer. It is that, but it's also an antiviral. And then there was another treatment that was mentioned by oh, who's the guy, the UFC guy, Adam or something. You guys know who I'm talking about. Bald guy, rich as hell. There was another treatment that he was advocating that he used, and he said that it made it a walk in the park. He's not vaccinated. We're definitely, I'm not really in general against vaccinations, but I think that taking a newly developed, uh, unvetted injection is sketchy at best. And if you look at the track record of the people that are making it, it's pretty frightening. And I can remember, I don't know how many times in my life when the establishment, whatever you want to call it. So a storm is coming in. My internet's definitely going to get spotty. I guess I'll try to keep going for now. There are people here. I'm trying to think like what else could I say about taking your goddamn mask off. Don't try to convince your parents that you're something other than you are. It's not healthy for them or you. If your sister's doing it, tell them. Just tell them. Oh, you think you raised one child that's normal? She's actually a raging alcoholic and whatever. Tell the truth about everything all the time. And you don't need to worry about offending people. I hate to tell you this, but I have always felt like if someone gets offended, they probably need to be offended. It's in their best interest to offend them. And I'm not talking about mean spirited offending. I'm talking about, unreasonably getting offended. Uh, Tell the truth. It's okay to rock the boat. It's okay to shake off the straitjacket of herd conformity pressure and actually be something that matters. Um, because what herd conformity does is neutralize your power, right? And tolerating it in other people really allows for the perpetuation of all of the evils in our society. If someone is mentally ill, you feel totally okay with encouraging them to get help, right? If someone is religious, they are mentally ill. And so it's okay for you to tell them that they shouldn't be religious. It's okay to actively battle the things that are destroying the world. It doesn't matter what they are. And so when I talk about how what we have been taught is good, and we have these cherished cultural institutions actually that are really actually these terribly, yeah, monoatomic gold is probably really good for you. Um, but you know what I mean? It's not good. People say, "Oh, just respect everyone's beliefs. It's okay, for people to believe whatever they want." You probably wouldn't be saying that if you were like tied to a stake and somebody was lighting a fire under your feet. And people don't really think about this. Some people do. Some people do. But a lot of these like fundamentalist Christians in the United States actually would tie you to a pole and light you on fire if they thought they could get away with it. You know what I mean? It's not okay. It's not real. You're not doing anyone any harm. And I'm not talking about people that have spiritual beliefs. Obviously, they shouldn't have beliefs. They should have a spiritual life that ebbs and flows and transforms and grows, but not dogmatic beliefs, right? But I'm talking about the straight up delusional, insane religious people, to be more specific, which is most of them, right? Bible Belt, United States. The belief in the sky god and the whole weird thing. I mean, I think the universe is intelligent and that, spirit is the fifth element and it's also the fifth field of physics. You know what I mean? It's a field. It's the universe is intelligent and aware, but there's clearly no sky god up there judging everyone and whatnot. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. The restraints that are imposed on us by well-intended but really, really bad social politis that has become culturally institutional. Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. I mean, we've kind of wandered into like other areas here of like other types of issues that we're having on the planet. Um, but a lot of it really comes down to this lack of authenticity, of people not being real. of people not feeling like they're able to be real, like they're not able to express themselves consistent with what they actually believe. And I know I keep bringing up this experiment where 90% of people were discovered to lie if they thought that's what the herd. They know they're lying, but they think that's what everyone else thinks, so they will conform to the herd. Um, I really think that knowledge is tremendously powerful. That we know that people are doing that. Because if you doubt yourself, if you're influenced by the perception and the beliefs of other people, when you take into consideration the fact that as many as 90% of them don't actually believe the things they're saying they believe, they're only doing it in order to attempt to conform to the herd. What is there to doubt? And it's really kind of exciting to think that you might actually be able to liberate people yourself just by saying the things that you actually think instead of being inhibited out of fear. Another way to think about this is that decisions made out of fear are always wrong. Decisions made out of love are always correct. Um, so show Illuminostic some love. Hit that like button. Support us on PayPal, Zelle. Um, oh, I don't know why. I can't put my crypto wallet address. I could have just typed the Zelle in the chat, man. What the hell is wrong with me? Uh, So yeah, and everything you guys are saying is true. It's difficult for me to follow it on my phone because it disappears really quickly. Yeah, I'm not understanding some of them. Um, yeah, my position on the gender thing too. Speaking of being your authentic self, is that oh, thank you. Um, People should be able to do whatever they want. It doesn't bother me at all. But when you're asking other people to conform to your like perceptions that aren't objectively true, that's a little bit much. If someone wants to be addressed as she, I'll happily do that. I don't care what. But I feel like there is a constituency on the left that's asking more than that of people. And anytime there is a movement that's asking people to deny any aspect of objective reality, um, that's not healthy. That's not good. That's not even tolerable. It's not. I know you guys got to understand that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and we live in a very emotionally charged time, which means people aren't as smart as they normally would be, and we already weren't working with the full basket, most of us. And people are acting without thinking. And I should make some videos on really holistically integrated mindfulness because, a lot of people think of mindfulness as just observing thoughts as they pass without any judgment. And this is a good exercise. But I think that a practice of actually integrating wisdom uh, is also essential, right? And so actually taking the time to remind ourselves of what we're watching out for. What when people talk about having goals, we need to have goals in a pentagram, right? They're 5 points. So the four elements and spirit, right? We have to have goals in all of these categories. And I think that, we know that we're supposed to have material goals that are specific and that have timelines. But I think our spiritual practices tend to be a little bit more loose. Uh, and because of the pressures of our environment right now, culturally and socially, uh, I think we need to be a little bit more sophisticated than that and a little bit more subtle than that, and really bring some specificity to our mission to engineer our own consciousness, because that is what self-realization, I think, is partly a process of discovery, but I think we forget that it's also a process of creation. It's it's not just about discovering who we are, it's about creating who we are, which, going back to this idea of having faulty structural components. uh, when we are creating ourselves in our own image, we have to be very aware um, of the necessity of objectivity, because there can be a very strong drive to try to create something we're not, and that's not going to happen. Um, Despite all of your best efforts, it's not going to happen. So this is why all the smart motherfuckers throughout the golden age of Greece and the psychedelic, I don't want to call them prophets, I hate that, but you know what I mean, luminaries, how about that? Brightly shining Learys and McKennas and Wilsons. Uh, um, know thyself in some form or another is like commandment numero uno. Yeah, I mean, while you guys are on the subject of that, I mean, talk about a lack of inauthenticity. There's a lot of weird stuff with this idea of this God this man is promoting here. If he really hated the devil so much, then why didn't he just kill the devil instead of sending himself here to be killed by himself in order to save ourselves from himself? It just seems like a kind of ridiculous uh, sort of gymnastics to, I mean, you would think God would be a little bit more pragmatic. Well, the Trinity isn't just funny. It's also based on all of this stuff, the reason, where it derives its power from. Yeah, Satan's totally the servant of God. I'm surprised to hear you say that. In the Bible, the only time Satan ever does anything, and by the way, Satan was not an angel. It's a title in ancient Hebrew that was used to describe all sorts. King David was Ha-Satan in part of, in one of the references to him. Um, it's Well, that's just silly. There is no Satan. It's not a thing. It's a title. It's just another. It means adversary, or it has like three different meanings in Hebrew. Um, um, so yeah, what I was saying is the only time that Satan ever does anything in the Bible, he does exactly what this God tells him to, and it is to go and torture somebody just because he believes in him, basically. Which doesn't really seem like a godly thing to do. I don't know. Uh, Yeah, I'm maybe this guy will go up for tomorrow's Lucifer live stream. By the way, those of you that are patrons, um, uh, we're going to talk about Masonic secrets in the next secret stream, and it's going to be a good one because I'm going to tell you some seriously powerful shit that you know. Uh, it's going to be good. I'll just shut up and. But we're going to use the morals and dogma. It was written by a 33rd degree Freemason. Can you turn sugar into cocaine? Um, it is possible the magician may use any element in the universe to create any other element, and that's actually energy. There's an inexhaustible supply of any energy that the magician may need. He just must make himself a fit receptacle to receive that energy. And so, yeah, you can make cocaine out of sugar if you have like an atomic. I don't even know what it would be called. I mean, an atomic rearranger. I don't know, but that's how they have actually decided you can, after all, make uh, gold out of lead, just as the alchemist said. But you have to use a very expensive process that's it's not profitable. But the point is that we have determined you can actually make any element into any other element, and so yes, making cocaine out of sugar is theoretically possible, although you're going to have some really advanced gear. Uh, yeah, let your body metabolize it into cocaine if that's what you want to do, I guess. So I've been talking for 86 minutes, and I probably got my point across like 30 minutes ago, and I'm getting tired. So I appreciate all of your support, you guys. It's not getting any easier for us, so we appreciate your continued support. I still piss people off and scare them out of the Patreon. The last ones to go. Um, and listen to this, man. I think this was complete bullshit. All the females left. One has come now. Now we have one female Illuminati. Um, but what pissed them off is that I said I totally support your right to get an abortion, but you have to use arguments that actually make sense when you're trying to make progress with your opponents, right? Your antagonists. And so the my body, my choice argument doesn't really seem to work for me because it's somebody else's body. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to get an abortion. I'm just saying that that particular argument doesn't seem sensical to me, right? Because as soon as that's like sperm has activated it, it's going to be a person. So it's no longer you, it's a person you're carrying around inside of you. So if your argument in favor of abortion is that it's your body, I think that you have failed. It's a priori false. Uh, I support your choice to do anything as long as it doesn't harm anyone. And I think in the case of abortion, we're kind of teeter tottering on the line of, because you cannot go into the future and ask that person if they're okay with not getting put up for abortion. You can't do that. So there's no way, once it's happened, that you can claim that you're not violating someone else's will. And so when I said this, all the females canceled their patronage. I was actually kind of surprised because I was like, how is that not logical? How is it not rational? How is it, that's nothing but the truth. I, yeah, I mean, but that's not. It's still not. As soon as it's fertilized and developing into a person, it's no longer your body. It's another person's body that you're carrying around with you. I mean, what opiates do to your body is terrible. No, okay. So if you have a brain injury and you are comatose, is it okay for me to stab you? Can I kill you if you're sleeping? So that argument about consciousness is not really. It's not. It doesn't make any sense either. Because we don't say that just because someone's in a vegetative state that we can kill them. After, I mean, we do after a while. Like, I mean, you can say like, okay, well, I guess we can unplug it now because they're. But that argument doesn't, like most people would say, if you have someone in a vegetative state, you can't just kill them. You have to make sure they're going to stay. You know what I mean? It's not being conscious or not. You're sleeping, you're not conscious. I mean, I guess you could say if you're dreaming, you're conscious, but I don't know. I don't think there's any black or white line to this. You know, all I was saying though is that we need to, finesse our arguments if we hope to make progress. And that particular way of phrasing that argument is not solid enough. It's just you have to find something else. And the sociological impact of unwanted children is a much better argument, in my opinion. Um, you know, yes, definitely you can have too little serotonin because of drug use, particularly MDMA. Excessive use of MDMA. MDMA can be a very, very helpful drug. It can do things that other compounds cannot. Speaking of being your authentic self, a lot of barriers to self love can be overcome with MDMA therapy. Marriages have been saved with MDMA therapy. But if you take it too often, you can have problems with your serotonin. Cocaine, I don't know if this is true now. This was old research, but cocaine actually it causes the dendrites to grow more and more and more fingers, and then more and more dendrites. So somehow that spreads the available serotonin more thin, and you will never get as happy. Um, Giving Ritalin to children is should be a criminal offense. Uh, you'll never be as happy as you could have been before you abused a shit ton of cocaine. Supposedly, like you can just because you've created a permanent chemical imbalance, a biophysical chemical imbalance. Giving children Ritalin is definitely child abuse. Um, it's completely insane. I mean, if you look at the chemical name, it's very, very closely related to methamphetamine. So giving children meth and then wondering why they're shooting up their entire high school is this sort of defines our era. Like we really do. I'm not being mean. We have to live in our authenticity because we are living in the most brain dead society in the history of the planet. Between the over application and overprescribing of opiates and benzodiazepines and SSRIs, giving Ritalin to children. Um, we have destroyed the psyche and the soul of millions and millions and millions of people. What's up, Noel Squidtron? Um, as I'm often referenced, the ocean is testing positive for benzodiazepine. Um, And another thing to really bear in mind, and I'm quoting from a member of the European Parliament, which I guess oversees the EU somehow. Um, this person is a member of the political elite, is the point. And she said, there has never in the history of the world been a political elite that actually sincerely cares for the average person. And if you think that's changed now, you're out of your mind. So rather than having this delusion that a loving government is taking care of you, you have to ask the question, cui bono? Who does this benefit? And when we look at the last couple of years and the restrictions on our freedom and what has it done? Is it acclimatized us more to constant use of social media, right? And what do they have coming on the horizon? Big tech, the metaverse. So, it's like they're creating circumstances where it is a 100% guarantee that every single person is going to become inseparable from the metaverse. And when you are linked up to headgear in a three-dimensional false reality, 90% of your waking hours, what is that going to do to you? And then we have the knowledge that the algorithm is actually designed to rage engage people. Uh, what is amps? Amphetamines? Yeah, I mean, all I can say about that is that if you're using amphetamines, you need to stop because you're going to turn into a zombie and you're never going to come back. So, you can rewire the brain with psychedelics used in the right ways, under the right circumstances, with the right intention, and even on your own. But methamphetamines eventually are going to totally erase your soul. Um, yeah, you can't do that. Can't do that anymore. Gotta stop. Yeah, I have recommendations. I mean, oh, Adderall. Yeah, well, still, man. I mean, smoking meth obviously is a lot worse, but Adderall is still not good. No, it is meth. It's just a slightly different form of meth. Remember, meth is just yeah, a bowl of toad venom. Meth is just a contraction of a larger chemical name, and Adderall is also meth. Um, Yes, we know that Jesus saved you, but really that was your imagination and you saved yourself because you didn't want to be a piece of shit anymore, probably. So, authenticity, you guys, one of the best ways to peel away all these layers is psilocybin and other psychedelics. But these also have to be used with some kind of structure. And, you're asking me about this Adderall. Um, the most effective means of reversing addictions that we have in our entire arsenal is psilocybin, LSD, ayahuasca. All of these things have been clinically tested and they have all been established to treat addiction, depression, PTSD, all of this crap, probably everything else as well that you can possibly think of, right? Everything. Any psychological aberration. We now have at least two major researchers that have said exactly that 40 years apart. Humphrey Osmond in the 1960s said that psychedelics can reverse any psychological aberration known to man. And I can't remember the other guy's name, but it was definitely East Coast, Washington D.C. John Hopkins University, or John Hopkins. It's not a university. John Hopkins, they do research, and he said it is simply unprecedented in the history of psychiatry that a single medicine can have such efficacy for so many different applications, oftentimes with a single dose. Well, the thing is, Ray, you say you can't save yourself, but since Jesus wasn't even a historical personage, you did save yourself, and you're giving your power away to something in your imagination. And I think it would serve you a lot better to realize that you saved yourself. You don't need anything. You don't have to give the credit away. You did that. You did that because of the strength of your heart and your character. I did it as well. I was addicted to drugs on and off over the years. I didn't go to NA. I didn't do anything but, use psychedelics correctly and spend a lot of time analyzing myself. And I got tired of the bullshit. You don't even need anyone's help. You don't need anyone's help. Jesus isn't real. This is easy. Um, you have to realize that there is only uh, we all have divine sovereignty, right? There's no hierarchy. There's no this is more holy, this is the Son of God, and I'm just a lower. The Shroud of Turin is not proof of anything, dude. I have seen that shit on my fucking French toast. The Shroud of Turin is thoroughly debunked. It's not even. It's nothing. The Shroud of Turin is nothing. It's literally nothing. It's not proof of anything. That's like that's like going outside and saying, "Look, I can prove that it doesn't prove Christ existed at all, not even remotely." Even yeah, I know about Yeshua. I've read the Essene texts. I know about all that. But what you don't understand is that Joshua was not his name. Joshua means savior in Hebrew and in Aramaic, I think. So when that comes up, what they're actually saying is the savior said or whatever. But Joshua's Hebrew for savior. It's not Jesus translated. It's just the word for savior, and I've read all that stuff, and I'm not convinced that he was real. What disproves the Jesus myth completely is the fact that we have actually found the papers where the Romans wrote down their plan to create a fake religion, and the fact that the Roman consulate was super anal. All the records from that time were there. No mention of arresting Jesus of Nazareth. No mention of him walking around and preaching. No mention of him anywhere in the Middle East, anywhere, ever. Nothing. And that just wouldn't happen. Um, it just wouldn't happen if he had actually existed. There would be some kind of indication, and there's not. No matter what anyone says, there's nothing. Um, that's that's it. And probably the only reason that the Nag Hammadi library included any references to Jesus is that people were deathly afraid that they were going to get, burned alive. Um, that, that they were going to get burned alive for trying to communicate anything that's not in a Christian context. The original Gnostics actually believed that the serpent was good, and they rejected the God of the Old Testament in his entirety. Yeah. You guys realize I've been talking for 100 minutes now? I mean, it depends on who you're talking about. I've done a ton of research over decades, and I've never seen anyone really present anything other than I think. There's nothing in terms of evidence. There's no written document. There's absolutely nothing. Literally nothing. Uh, and certainly the the Bible was engineered by the Romans. Um, and you can prove that because of the derivative. What do they call it? Not derivative, but I just used the term 10 minutes ago. A composite myth. Jesus is a composite myth, and even his ministry follows the campaign trail of Titus. Like it's all really clear what where it came from. Um, it's not real. It just isn't. And it doesn't matter. I don't even know why you guys are arguing about this. Who cares? You don't need anyone to teach you basic morality, which is all Jesus did. It is true what Jesus said that you have to love your neighbor as you love yourself. If we don't learn to do this, the world is going to be completely destroyed. People have to actually take it literally and realize that they have an actual obligation to do this, an obligation to themselves as well as to their neighbor, right? But you shouldn't need anyone to tell you this shit. Until my son learns otherwise, you can tell he already knows this, right? I mean, you just watch what he does, and you can tell that I never taught him to share anything. He's come out of the jungle giving his family food. This stuff is instinctual. And he doesn't know I'm his family. He really doesn't know who the fuck I am. I'm just this guy that's around all the time. And he's 18 months year old and going into the jungle and bringing ice cream beans and stuff out for me to eat. Um, No, man, I don't even think there was a CIA influence. What happened there with that whole bunch of bullshit is the same thing that happens with most conspiracy theories. Um, the CIA was doing experiments with LSD and people. They were giving people LSD without their knowledge, and they were giving some people LSD with their knowledge. It just so happened that because San Francisco is one of the most diverse and most high IQ places in the entire world, the CIA, understanding LSD already because they had been experimenting with it for 10 years or so, went to San Francisco and they did interviews with people that they'd given LSD, and Robert Hunter and King Kesey happened to be a couple of the subjects. But the connection to the CIA is gone after that. That's it. That's all it was, and it's not. It's just all silly. I wish I was CIA because I would be getting a paycheck, which is why we need you to support us. There's a Zelle address, PayPal, cryptocurrency, and my other video descriptions. I didn't have time to put it in this one. Um, yeah, man, I have no CIA paycheck. I wish I did. And if the CIA is out there telling people to think for themselves, to question authority, to find their authentic self, to be an iconoclast and challenge the institutions and beliefs and cultural bullshit that I'm encouraging people to challenge, then we need the CIA to be in charge, I guess. They're in the right place if that's the case. If me and Timothy Leary and Terrence McKenna and Jerry Garcia and, Joe Rogan maybe, we're all CIA agents, then we need more CIA, I guess. Because then it would actually live up to its Central Intelligence Agency moniker. Um, if Robert Anton Wilson was a CIA agent, then I could, okay, well, this is Central Intelligence then, so I can kind of vibe with that, I guess. But I think that shit's just silly that people say that. They kind of forget that the all-seeing eye goes back all the way to Egypt. So people would see the all-seeing eye on the back of the further bus, and they would see the sun disk with the wings behind the Grateful Dead. Also, Hitler flew that, and I'm not saying the Grateful Dead were Nazis. I'm just saying that they also used this Egyptian symbol. People see that and they're like, "Oh, Illuminati." No, man. Everyone that has ever had any knowledge of the secret doctrine generally uses all those symbols. And it's way older than Christianity, and it's older than the Illuminati, and it's older than anything. Um, I don't think that's true, Kensho, because I think they know exactly what psychedelics did before they would have done that. And what they actually did is that, because I know who flooded the country, and he made enough for everyone. Like I went to his wake. I'm 100% certain of this. I know who flooded the world with LSD, and actually I know two of them. Knew two of them. The other one I would have met, but he died right when I got here. The Orange Sunshine guy was retired in Vilcabamba. But they knew better than that. They 100% knew what it does, and they would not have done that. They're not that dumb. They're not like this bumbling. They had been studying it for 15 years at that point. That's not what happened. What happened is the LSD got out because Owsley was making it and distributing it almost for free, millions and millions and millions. He made so much that they didn't need the CIA to make any. Trust me. Owsley made a bathtub full. You realize what a bathtub full of LSD is? Have any idea what a gallon of LSD is? 1/12 of a beer can is enough for 100,000 strong doses. Okay, so he made a bathtub full. That was just one batch. So CIA flooding the country with LSD to defeat their own machine because they knew damn well that's what it would do. That's why you when they made it illegal, they made it a treason charge to possess so much, so you can actually be executed for possession of LSD because they said it was attempting to undermine the government. Um, that's because they knew it would cause people to become iconoclasts, right? Ungovernable. But Owsley made it all, and then the CIA did flood drugs into places where there were a lot of hippies, but it wasn't LSD. They flooded crystal meth, they flooded heroin, they created the crack epidemic, and all of that is not conjecture. All of that is provable, because the Freedom of Information Act has told us this. And if you actually look at the Freedom of Information Act releases, they actually talk about this, that they're trying to neutralize the psychedelic movement by flooding it with crystal meth and heroin and all of these evil drugs. So I think you have your history wrong there. Ketamine, I mean, I hate ketamine, but if you go with the research, um, if you just look at the research, what, for PTSD? No, see, that's the thing. One of the reasons that MDMA and ketamine are necessary is that the other psychedelics like mescaline, magic mushrooms, LSD, they will cause psychotic breaks and anxiety reactions. And, if you've had a ton of trauma, which is generally the case with people that have PTSD, um, uh, ketamine and MDMA are useful because they don't have that cerebral uh, kind of fight or flight. They don't trigger that, especially ketamine. Sometimes, in rare cases, people will have anxiety responses to MDMA. Um, but in the case of ketamine, you have the benefit of it No, ketamine is not natural. Ketamine is a laboratory synthesized. It's nothing natural about it. It's not even related to a compound in a plant that we know of or anything. But the value of it is that you have the person sedated. You don't have a strong psychological reaction, but you do have the neuroplasticity that allows for new imprints to be made very quickly that have lasting, they stick. So that's really the benefit of ketamine, that it has that neuroplasticity. And I think also the real value, but this requires me to move into the realm of woo to an extent, is that the barrier between the individual consciousness and the universal mind is temporarily uh, deactivated, and any contact for the individual unit with this greater mind uh, results in improvement to the psychological and emotional, spiritual disposition of the individual unit. No, I don't believe so. I think ketamine is a weird. I don't know about DXM, but ketamine is just some weird shit that's in its own category. Yeah, I mean, ketamine, you shouldn't use ketamine unless you need ketamine. And that's really the case with all of this stuff. Yeah, that is true. Ketamine, like 5-MeO. No, don't say that about 5-MeO. Ketamine is, that was a good one, though. What? I've never heard anything about Huxley and MDMA. He wrote about mescaline, but not MDMA. What do you mean? I've done that in a number of live streams already. I mean, I have like, manuals to using psychedelics properly, but a real quick and easy one is that mescaline is not in the same class as psilocybin, LSD. It's not the indole ring psychedelic. But it is a phenethylamine, so it's related to MDMA. So if you have a situation where the psychedelic experience can be reinforced, or someone needs MDMA type therapy, but it could be reinforced with the psychedelic experience, then mescaline would be the go-to choice. It's not used in clinical research much because it lasts so long. You give a strong dose of mescaline to people, and it can last for 40 hours. I've been unable to sleep for 3 days after ceremonies sometimes. That is why I almost never do San Pedro ceremonies anymore. I can't physically deal with being awake for that long. Um, oh my God. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember Flezik drank some on a volcano. I think I wanted to do that too, but I didn't end up. The volcano we went to was too lame. You couldn't really get on the side of it. Trust me, if you drank my yeah, yeah, in like the early '80s or late '70s or something, I think. Um, okay, so yeah, that's mescaline. Psilocybin is great for depression. It can actually rejuvenate damaged brain cells, which is something that was thought to be impossible before it was observed in the laboratory. It is 85% more efficacious at curing addiction than traditional therapies. All of that shit can be said for LSD, basically, except that it actually has the best. It is the most efficacious at catalyzing uh, neurogenesis and enhancing neuroplasticity. Um, so, for certain types of work, it's actually the most effective thing. When you're trying to repattern the brain, PTSD could be a huge thing there. Um, the thing about all the psychedelic therapies is that there's a lot of overlap. They basically can all be used to treat all the things that any of them are used for. It's just that some of them are going to be a little bit better for certain applications than others. Oh, Soma. Yeah, 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 yeah. But what I think that was about is that it's not really a specific prediction. It's just the idea that we're going to have like benzodiazepines at our disposal, and anytime anything's wrong with someone, they'll just give you a pill. I don't think that was necessarily a prediction specifically about a super drug. You know, it was just this idea that we'll just take a pill every time our emotions get out of control, um, which has certainly happened. You know, the world that we're living in now is sort of like a hybrid of Orwellian nightmare and Huxleyan nightmare. They took all of the stuff from both of those books and blended it together, and now we have this like brave new um, brave new 1984 or something that we're living in. Yeah, a gram is better than a damn. Yeah, you can smoke Psychotria viridis, but you cannot smoke most DMT containing plants. The only DMT containing plant that I'm aware of that you can actually smoke is the Wilca seed or the Yopo seed. Um, Not benzos are not good for anything. Benzos will work for PTSD, but what you're doing is like creating a zombie. You know, so yeah, they'll work, but you know, would it be better to actually cure the problem rather than just treating it, which is what psychedelics can do? Um, Benzos are one of the most dangerous classes of drugs because they are the only um, drug besides alcohol that the withdrawals can actually kill you. Um, yeah, well, he was saying that it was that Soma was like I think he was saying that Soma was a prediction about a specific drug that would be used to control everyone, and I'm just saying that I think it was just kind of a symbol for the idea that they were going to use antidepressants and other medicines to control the minds of people. Benzos, I think alcohol is worse, really, because I've beaten a lot of people, you know, up pretty badly when I was really, really drunk when I was a lot younger. And I've said a lot of embarrassing things and done a lot of embarrassing things when I used to drink a lot. And benzos, I mean, yeah, you still douchier than you might be otherwise, but it's got nothing on alcohol. What do you mean alcohol hasn't killed anyone? Oh, you mean the withdrawals? Yeah, I think DTs from alcohol actually does occasionally kill people. But I know for sure that benzos do. I'm not 100% about alcohol, you're right, but I'm pretty sure that delirium tremors from alcohol have occasionally killed people. I mean, you know, it may be technically that they choked on their tongue or something because of the DTs, but uh, dead from withdrawal. Is there a kind of alcohol you shoot up? Is that what you're asking me? I knew junkies that would shoot up Jack Daniels. Yeah, I'm sure it sucked. I mean, it sounds like a terrible way to get intoxicated. I don't know what I mean. It sounds like you have something against maps. I've heard a lot of people saying that, but I mean that's what happens when activists become institutionalized and the profit motive enters, and they get to be powerful enough that I have not tried amanitas because I it doesn't sound very appealing to me, and it's very toxic. And repetitive muscle syndrome sounds like a shit show from hell. So I've never really felt inclined. For me, I think you know at this point in my life, I'm definitely really only interested in LSD as in moderate doses as a it's almost like steroids, I guess, like brain steroids. Really, you know, getting out of creative. If you're drawn into a quarter creatively, uh, or your brain is getting foggy like mine is now, although I've been talking for 120 minutes straight. Um, I hope not for free too, you motherfuckers. Sun tea on the hills of my grandfather. I'm not saying it's always bad. I'm just saying that in my and I've just never felt an inclination to take panther caps or Amanita muscaria and do anything with them. I don't have any interest in it. It sounds pretty grueling and maybe not helpful. The benefits of sun gazing. Well, I can't speak directly on the benefits of gazing because, for example, one of the reasons that I put Sadhguru down sometimes, other than the fact that he is a wife killer, is that he speaks about things of which he has no knowledge. And enlightened people don't do that. Even decent people don't do that. Like wise people, you don't speak about things you don't know anything about. Licking the toad would do nothing. That DMT is not orally active. That's an old wives' tale. There's no toad that you lick. You have to get the glands, stuff out of the glands, and smoke it, dry it out, and smoke it. Well, you probably don't have to dry it out even. If you have some patience, you could just smoke it. What was the question someone asked me that I was actually trying to answer? Oh yeah, Sadhguru talking about ayahuasca, even though he doesn't know. But what I will say is that one of the things I'm going to talk about in my live stream tomorrow is this um, the secret doctrine that actually lies behind what we call Hermeticism, which is deeply rooted or has it's the other way around. It's influenced modern Luciferianism more than people realize. Not the evil kind, but the other kind. Um, and so one of the basic tenets of it is that the sun is conscious and that light comes from consciousness, or the other way around, or maybe I mean that could be just a circle. I don't know, but chicken or the egg. But there's this deep relationship between the sun and our own consciousness, basically, and so also all matter is light in a standing wave. So I would imagine that creating a continuous loop of sunlight and your closed eyes or partially opened eyes um, is probably going to do something good for you. Would imagine. Yeah, no one cares, man. It's a weird thing. They'll say that they believe that she actually transcended this realm, even though she had two young children. And it's like, okay, so she's so enlightened that she's free from attachment. So she doesn't care what it does to her two young daughters to lose their mother all of a sudden. Um, and then this motherfucker propped her up in front of his people and acted like she was doing it on the spot right in front of them. Huh? Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. That licking it. I don't. I mean, but you can't just lick the toad. It still has to secrete the stuff. The glands are on the back of its head, so you would have to lick it in the right place. It's not. The toad is not just covered with DMT. Um, but yeah, I guess I've never thought to check to see if bufotenin and 5-MeO are really active. I just assume that since NN is not. Um, So that's an interesting thought. I have a bunch of Charlie Pongo, which is a plant that has 5-MeO DMT, and that implies that I could make a tea with it and just drink it, which I've never heard of anyone doing. But I have to go. It's 1:20 and not 1:20 in the morning, but an hour and 20 minutes. Um, so thank you guys for spending this time with me. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to smash that like button, share the videos, join us tomorrow for a discussion of the deep secrets of Luciferian mysticism. Um, Zell is pasted in the chat if you would like to support us, which we profoundly appreciate. I'm having to get our computer fixed in order to use all this gear I just emptied our bank account into. So, um, yeah, I know what you do, but I'm saying you can't just lick the toad's butt and then you're tripping. It definitely doesn't work like that. Um, okay, good night, everyone. We'll see you again soon.